All right, y'all. It is April. Oh my God. It is so busy. I know that y'all are busy out there with your events. We're very excited. I know Courtney had asked about getting your events, and we're like posting those things up. But it's Sexual Assault Awareness and Prevention Month, it's Child Abuse Month. It is all those things. And we are completely busy, slammed in a good way. We're getting the word out. And equally as busy is the Capitol. It's funny, we were at the Capitol the other day, and I was talking to the team and I was like, oh my gosh, it's going to be really busy in May. And they were like, oh no, girl, it's going to be, this is the busy part. April is the busy part. May is kind of when things start to, I guess, get where they're going. So I learned something that day. But very excited. We've been at the Capitol. I was there. We'll talk about that here in a second, but things are rolling. You either are in or out. And right now it's kind of go time, and it's, rubber meets the road. And so we've got some great updates for you all. Again, as the team mentioned earlier in another TAASA Talks, there's a ton, I mean, a shit ton of bills that came through, and not all of them are making it through. We're very excited that ours are in the process. So, with that being said, I just wanted to thank y'all for joining us today, and we're excited to share our updates with y'all. What's going on, Courtney?
Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome back to another TAASA Talks, y'all. Uh, okay, so typically I just ask y'all what's going on at the Capitol. I know you're at the Capitol, so specifically, what's been happening with the Sexual Assault Survivors Task Force bills? And just so y'all know, we're going to have a handy chart to try to follow along. Bear with me as we do this.
Speaking of Sexual Assault Survivor Task Force, so I was there this past week on Tuesday, I believe. Was that the right date, Liz? Okay.
Yep.
Yes, and I was asked to testify because, again, speaking of the task force, HB 2670, the originator of the task force was Representative Howard back in the 86 with HB 1590. Now what's happening is that the task force is set to expire. And so we are just getting traction on making an impact, not only on a statewide level, but on a local level. Bringing folks to the table has been a magical thing and wouldn't have happened any other way, I don't believe. So we want to, this particular bill is to continue the task force. It also lists out specific partners statutorily that we want to include. Most notably is including survivors. We have survivors on the task force, but we wanted to make sure that it is written in statute that survivors are included in this task force. And we also made some other cleanup language to that bill. Another important piece is that we're including a piece where folks will get reimbursed if they travel in. A lot of us are in Austin, so it's not a big deal. But the fact that this is a statewide task force, a lot of folks' budgets are tight. So we wanted to include just a little bit to allow the governor's office to kind of provide travel reimbursement for those that are coming in. But I believe on that chart, this one's on the very top on the House side. Wait, this
On the House side?
there.
So right there?
That one.
All right.
I was trying to point at it. So yeah, it's there, and so it was heard. I don't believe y'all team. Do y'all know? I know that they didn't vote right then and there, but it made one little hurdle after Howard laid it out, and then I did my testimony, and then Justin did testified, and then where does it go next? Sorry, what's happening with that? Do y'all know?
Yes. So the House committee will vote on it. I believe they were voting yesterday. I can double check that real quick and see if that has been posted yet, what the outcome was. But I believe it was voted on and moved on, then would go to the calendar committee to be put on the calendar for the House as a body to hear it on the floor.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
All right. Thank you. Well, that's the update for the Sexual Assault Survivor Task Force, bill, so that it continues to do the awesome work that it's doing. And so now I'll pass it off for our other SASTIF is short for short. The other bill, which is 2650, hand it off to Liz.
Yes. So on that same day, Tuesday, that Rose was testifying so brilliantly on the task force reauthorization bill, our very own criminal justice analyst, Mike Sweeney, was also there to testify on HB 2650. And this is the task force recommendation that would require every law enforcement officer in the state of Texas to have a specific training on sexual assault investigations. This is very new for Texas. Many of these officers haven't really gotten any of this training at all. Some of them have gotten lots of training, but that's obviously not consistent across the state. So this would be an 8-hour training. The content of the curriculum would be approved by the task force, and it would be offered to the new cadets through their basic peace officer course. And then all other officers would receive that training through their regular TCOL approved continuing education. So we were excited to see that the committee was interested in this bill, and they didn't have any concerns, it appeared. And I do believe this was passed out of committee. So same as the last one, Courtney, it started up there on the left.
So and it started here.
Yes, indeed.
And now we are here.
I believe it's moving on down. That's right.
Okay, so it's right here.
Yeah, let's call
right
it
in the middle of it.
Let's call that. Yes, exactly. So, and we're hopeful that the companion to this bill, 1402, SB 1402, would be heard soon in the Senate committee. So on the opposite side of the chart. It's not quite there yet, but we're hopeful that it will be very soon. And while we're talking about SASTIF, we were very excited that the task force bill that is a recommendation to amend the definition of consent, HB 2696, that was heard in House Criminal Jurisprudence Committee this past week. Wow. So not Tuesday of a few days ago, but last week, the April 4. I actually testified on this bill. We were so appreciative that also Lavinia Masters came down to testify. She's a survivor of sexual assault and also a member of the task force as well. She did a fantastic job talking about her account of what happened to her and how this is really an impactful legislation for survivors. As well, we had 2 very seasoned career prosecutors that also made the trip down to the Capitol, spent several hours out of their day waiting to testify. And they made very compelling arguments about why we absolutely need to amend the statute, why this particular solution is going to make a huge difference in their ability to prosecute these difficult cases, specifically when there's an instance of intoxication or when a person does decide to withdraw their consent to sex. We know all too well that those are the hard cases that often do get dismissed, or just prosecutors don't feel like they can actually make a case to begin with. So this bill is going to really make a difference, we believe. And the committee, we were thrilled that they really heard what the prosecutors said and what Lavinia Masters testified to as well. I especially really loved Tiffany Larson was the prosecutor from Harris County. She likened consent to theft. Basically, she explained to the committee that sexual assault is essentially like a theft, and that we need to have a definition for consent in the penal code that really just reflects that you shouldn't presume that consent is present, but that actually you should presume the opposite, that you don't have consent unless it's apparent, unless the person has actually showed a willingness to engage. So it was really great testimony. It was an awesome hearing. And after the testimony, the committee members ultimately voted the bill out of committee. So we're looking to see, so it has gone down. Exactly right. It hasn't quite made it to the House floor yet.
Okay, so we're right here.
So we're hopeful that it will get there soon. And so we're looking to see when that's going to happen, and also when its Senate companion on the other side will be heard in the Criminal Justice Committee. That will be next to kind of keep the process going. And, you know, they're going to do their postings later, I believe today. So by the end of the day, maybe we'll even have that knowledge if it'll be heard next week or not. And that number is SB 2196.
Yeah, I have a quick question for y'all. Really quick. before we move on to the next one. So I know when Courtney is committee, and then she circles the little arrows in between committee and calendar committee. Can y'all describe really quickly, does it automatically go to the calendar, or is there still a process of decision making either before in those arrows or when it's in that
So
square
there's
of
no
the
decision
calendar?
at that point.
What?
I'm sorry.
Sorry, there's
it's
no
just paperwork.
decision making at that point. It's just a report that needs to be
Flow
sent.
through? Okay.
Okay, so it's going to make it to the floor debate. It's just a matter of motion.
Well, it's got to get to the calendars committee first.
Yeah.
And then that's made up of certain members of the House that then decide from all the bills
Okay.
that have been voted out committee, they go to the calendars committee, and then they set the calendar for the floor.
So there's a decision point when they're in the calendar committee.
Yes.
So that's another hurdle for us that we will fly over, hopefully.
Right.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So next up, we also got to have another one of our priority bills for the SASTIF be recognized. And Samantha, I think, is going to give the update on that.
Yeah, so we had another bill that was heard in the Public Health Committee back on the 3rd of April, so back last week. We have Jenny Black, who is part of the task force, come out and testify for the bill. She is also a SANE, and she's the director of forensic nursing at SAFE. So with that incredible background, it was great to have her come out and testify for the bill. And so she was able to kind of speak to the importance of it and how it would better equip doctors, PAs, nurses, admin to better understand evidence collection and trauma-informed care. So that critical point where, survivors come into an ER, just being able to have a little bit of training on how to handle that situation. And this won't only help sexual survivors, but also, crime victims. So we really like this bill. And then also there were some questions that came up. So we followed up with some of those members and hopefully have answered all of those. And now we are just working with the author of the bill and the chairwoman, Stephanie Click, her clerk, to get that bill voted on and sent over to calendars. So if y'all want to get involved and help out, please feel free to reach out to her office, Chairwoman Click, and get a favorable vote on that bill. So that's where we're at for that one.
So which area would that then place it? So on the chart,
it's in the committee right now. So we
So
still
it
need
is-
a vote, and then it'll be at those arrows.
but there's still actionable items that people can take place in to help.
Yeah. So if they want to reach out to the chairwoman's office, we just need a favorable vote on that, and then that'll get it down to the arrows and then down to calendar, the calendars committee. So,
Perfect. Thank you.
and take it away, Ashley.
Thanks. I'll round this topic out with the last SASTIF priority bills that had some movement this week. They were House Bill 2668 by Representative Ann Johnson and Senate Bill 1401 by Senator Zaffarini. These are the bills that aim to strengthen survivors' rights relating to forensic exams and crime victims' compensation. Both bills had hearings on Tuesday of this week, and there was some great testimony. The House bill was left pending, but we are hopeful that it will be voted out sometime next week. The Senate bill was actually voted out that same day with no opposition, and it will likely be debated and voted out of the full Senate sometime next week. These bills do have a slight negative fiscal impact for the state, but we are actively working with legislators to get them to understand the importance of this legislation for survivors' health and healing.
So I guess with that, I would actually, so it's in two places on here on the chart. Can you help me out? So
Well, the House bill is moving on this one and the Senate bill. So the House bill is technically still in committee on the House side, but the Senate bill is on the Senate floor.
Ooh, that's it. So it kind of went through the process pretty quick.
Yes.
Okay. Wow. That's great. And
Wow.
that's good work.
Very cool. So that means it doesn't necessarily go through one before it reaches the other. It's just both that are happening simultaneously sometimes.
Yes, because it's more about kind of hedging your bets that one of those will get through both chambers first, or when one bill catches up with the other one, sometimes depending on the rules of the chamber, you can swap them out and
Oh,
it will
wow.
help streamline the process.
Very cool. Thanks, Ashley.
Sure.
All right. So now for our members, in case you're curious, can you update us on TAASA's 3 priority bills?
Yes. Our first priority that I'll update us on is the bills involving improving prosecutor engagement with victims. Both of these bills are doing great as far as their movement in the legislature. The House bill, HB 1739 by Representative Leach, was unanimously voted out of committee last week, and it will soon be in House Calendars Committee. The Senate bill, Senate Bill 409 by Senator Hinojosa, was unanimously voted out of the full Senate on Thursday, so just yesterday, and it was received in the House this morning.
Whoa, that's good.
Wait. Oh, so wait, it already.
So
yes,
it
went
Senate
from
Bill 409
here.
is now at the beginning of the process in the House.
That's right.
So we're like this.
Yes.
Wow, that's awesome.
That's awesome.
This is like Chutes and Ladders.
And I guess let's see Samantha is going to update us on our other priority bill.
Yeah. So our connections card bill, that is doing great as well. So in the Senate, it has been voted out of committee, and that was the Criminal Justice Committee. And now it is hopefully going to be voted out of the Senate fully next week. We had our very own Mike Sweeney with TAASA testify on the bill for both the House and the Senate. And he did a wonderful job speaking to how the bill is very critical for law enforcement and that first interaction with survivors. So getting them the resources or connected to the resources that they need, and understanding their crime victims' rights. So the Senate bill is well moving. The House bill is, like I said, it was just heard this week, and hopefully gets a positive vote and will be on its way to calendar soon.
Okay, so the House bill is here and hopefully moving soon. And then this
Yes.
one is just finished from here, but not quite yet at floor debate, correct?
Not quite there yet, but very
Okay.
close.
Yeah. And our very
Yes.
last one is the little engine that could. I have such high hopes for this, and I'm not giving up yet, you guys, but this is really where we could use some love and support and prayers and hopes and maybe phone calls. So SB 819 was our last one to be filed between our 3 priorities. It was the last one to be filed. It's also going to be the last to be heard in committee if it gets to that point. We're hopeful that maybe it might get heard next week in Senate Criminal Justice. Again, the announcement hasn't come out yet, but as it stands now, we're a little concerned. Just to kind of recap, this particular bill would ensure that crime victims would be able to have an attorney represent them in the criminal process, to enforce their rights, to help educate them about the process, et cetera. And it would be really an impactful piece of legislation that would be groundbreaking for Texas. It's not unprecedented. There's definitely a model for it across the country and indeed in the military system. But as of yet, we haven't done that yet in Texas. So it is new. It's a new concept for us, but we can do it. I know we can do it. But anyway, if you happen to live in Harris County in Senator Whitmire's district, he is the chair of the committee where it's needing to be heard, the Criminal Justice Committee. We would love for you to think about calling their office today to just say that you support the bill and hope that it gets heard by the committee. Also, it still needs to be heard in the House as well. Its companion is HB 3786. And so if you are in Representative Moody's district in El Paso, he is the chair for the committee where that would be heard in the House, criminal jurisprudence. And we would be we would love it if people felt compelled to put in a call to either of those offices. It's most impactful if you actually live in those districts. But anyway, we would just love your support on this one, because it's a great bill and it needs to be heard. And so yeah, we're excited about it, but a little bit intrepidatious, whatever the word is. No, you can at least put it in the committee. It's at least it's not that bad.
Okay. I was just, since it hasn't been heard and there's still action items,
Yes.
is that like in order to be heard in the committee? So
Yeah.
Is it safe to say like here?
Yes,
Sure.
it's been referred to the committee. So
Yes.
it's the lawyer.
Exactly. It's in its infancy, let's say. So
There's still time. There's still time.
Yes,
Yeah.
there's a little time, and we want it to now grow very quickly. So that's the story about our priorities. 2 out of 3 ain't bad, y'all. It's pretty good news all around. Yeah.
Especially knowing, as Rose mentioned, the amount of bills that were submitted,
For sure. For sure.
So what is next for the bills that are voted out of the Senate? And I know we touched on one.
Yeah, we touched on this a little bit, but as a lot of people know, in order for a bill to reach the governor's desk and thus ultimately become law, it must pass through both chambers of the legislature. So, for example, SB 409 that we were just talking about, it was voted out of the Senate yesterday, got to the House this morning. So now the House Speaker will refer that bill to a committee in the House, and the process will start all over again in that chamber. I know for some people, that probably seems a bit tedious, but then again, these procedures are designed to make sure that, our laws are fully vetted. There are some people at the Capitol that would describe it as the process is designed to kill bills, not pass them. So you could look at it that way too. And as we mentioned over and over again, thousands of bills are filed every session, and probably the majority of them are not that great of ideas.
We're going for the positive. We're going for the positive.
Ours are great ideas. Always want ours to pass. But as a collective of all the bills that are filed, let's fully vet those.
Yes.
So we do have a big upcoming deadline in the House. It's about 4 weeks away, so May 8th. So this will only affect House bills, and it is that little kind of paperwork area that we were talking about earlier. So between the committee and calendars, this will be the last, May 8th will be the deadline for House committees to send a report to calendars. So again, it only affects House bills. It doesn't affect Senate bills, but if a report has not been sent to calendars, then that bill is no longer viable after May 8th. So got about 4 weeks away for that big one, but yeah, staying positive there.
Nice. Well, on that note, y'all, that concludes this TAASA Talks. If you have questions, policy@taasa.org. Thanks, y'all, for enduring my little chart.
I love that chart. I love it. I learned something today.
Me
It's a good
too.
visual.
And I was going to say, Rose, any final notes?
Just thank y'all for listening. The little bill that could, I guess we'll call it that, Liz, the crime victim. It's a big bill. It's an impactful bill. So that deadline kind of hit me in the heart, because I'm like, let's get that through. We've got some time. It's so impactful, but very thankful just to the strategy and to the know-how of the policy team. Very impressed when I was there with them earlier this week, and they were strategizing on what needs to happen where. So I'm just very thankful for them. The state of Texas should be thankful, survivors, our movement. So no, thank y'all so much. And thank you for watching. And please, we may be reaching out again to ask you all to help, the these things through those squares and arrows that we saw earlier. So no, thank y'all so much. We appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
Next time.